Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Here's what we have coming up on today's show.
Goldson and Jack will return for Servette. Clash confirms Michael Beale.
It was in our plan never to play in 3 games this week.
Rogers hails tough Don's win, but injury doubts dampen Celtic's victory. St Johnstone boss Stephen MacLean threatens to replace first-team players with youngsters.
I'm not having that, so I'd rather play a 16-year-old and have what I've seen there today.
Ange Postecoglou insists Spurs squad are already over Harry Kane exit.
Haven't needed to, give them a warm, fuzzy cuddle just to see how they are.
Yeah, lots to talk about, lots to get our teeth into after a weekend of Scottish Premiership fixtures. We'll have a wee look at the English Premier League as well, all in the company of Alan Ruff and Tam McManus, our regulars. And Ruffy, if you're going to make a signing for a Monday, you might as well go for the best. We might as well get somebody up front, not bad, yourself in the goals, and the man to take care of the midfield. And I'm talking about Neil Lennon.
Yeah, brilliant for Neil to come in. We know he's very busy, but he's told everybody we're going to make a big signing, so we're nearly there.
I'm just filling in for him until he gets here. Check Henrik's flight, will you? To be fair, great to have Neil with us, of course, for the next 2 weeks until the move to Saudi Arabia is confirmed, and then he'll be off ski. Great to have you here. We've got lots to talk about, including, of course, the weekend, the Scottish Premiership. Here's the scores over Saturday and Sunday for you to mull over. Rangers' emphatic win, 4-0 over Livingston. Ross County 2, St Johnstone 0. St Mirren with top of the table on Saturday night with that 2-1 win over Dundee. It was Aberdeen 1, Celtic 3. Hearts, no goals between them and Kilmarnock, and then Motherwell edging Hibs out by 2-1. So let's start with yesterday. What did you make of Celtic in that win? Everybody's talking about the fact that it was just a great game.
I thought Aberdeen were brave in their setup, the way they basically went man to man at the back. I think Barry, in his post-match said how pleased he was, but I think deep down inside he'll be pretty disappointed didn't get something out of the game. I thought Celtic toiled in the first half, and then they had a really good spell after half time, and Hatate came on and there was more fluidity about them, and Nicky Devlin made a great block from Maeda to stop it going 3. But the 2 goals Aberdeen conceded first half, Shinnie barges into Ralston when he's going nowhere, conceded a free kick, unnecessary goal, and then Nicky Devlin just lost concentration when at that stage Aberdeen had equalised and were on the front foot. But it's a great win for Celtic. It's never easy going to Podolski. But yeah, in terms of spectacle, it was a really good game to watch. Yeah, this is what Brendan Rodgers had to say about the game itself. In all my times coming to Aberdeen, I can only remember one game that we were comfortable in, but other than that, you always have to work really hard to get a result. The pitch was very long, which made our passing slow, and their style is very committed. The players cope with it, and it's great for us to win early on, to come away to one of our rivals and score 3 goals. And with that in mind, we thought Barry Robson's team would reflect how he was as a player, and they went about it that way.
They did, and I agree with Neil. I thought they were pretty brave in the way they set up. They didn't sit in. I think when you're at home against Old Firm, it's easy to sit in and try and protect it and try and play for set pieces. He didn't do that. He went at them, and I thought the Celtic substitutions kind of gave them a lift. I think second half particular, I think Yang and Holm coming on were excellent. I think the boy Yang looks as if he's got something. There's a big gap to fill for Jota, but the way he went past him, cut it back, great finish from O'Reilly. So, no, I think that Celtic, they've got a few injuries, but I think I like the look of the boys they've signed, younger players, and were probably looked upon as squad players. But I think both of them could possibly force a win at the starting lineups.
Yeah, and as far as the performance from Aberdeen, as well as the compliments from Neil Lennon, Barry Robson, the Dons manager, well happy despite the defeat.
Listen, we're going to make mistakes. We make mistakes. We all do. We get that. And I thought Nicky Devlin was outstanding the whole way through the game. Having to try and deal with Maeda, who's got that speed and all that, cope well with it. And yeah, I think I'm not sure that with the possession stats we've not been too far away from each other today, and I think we tried to play in a way that is aggressive and brings speed to the game, and I think we did that, and I think that's as good a performance we've seen for an Aberdeen team here against Celtic for a lot of years.
And interestingly enough, most of the Dons fans prior to the game and after are fairly philosophical, Ruffy, on the fact that You know, they can't match them for their spending power, but certainly they're excited by the fact that Miofsky's still there, Duke's there, they've managed to get Clarkson in, on a permanent basis, so they've got players there that are going to excite.
Yeah, I think if you watch the game, you could see that the Aberdeen supporters are excited. They're looking forward to the season. You could tell when they got the equaliser, the place absolutely erupted. And we keep talking about we need a good Aberdeen, we need a good Hibs and a Hearts. But I thought at the end of the day, Celtic took their chances and Aberdeen never. But I mean, I still think Celtic were the better side. I think, as Tam said, the substitutions that come on just turned the game.
Yeah, it's tough to call when you look at the two teams early on. I mean, we're going to wait till the end of the month to call who we think's going to win the league, who's going to be second and third, and then of course it's a lottery at the other end to try and work out who you think's going to be relegated or in the playoff places. But early doors, I think Aberdeen fans have got a lot to feel excited about.
Yeah, I mean, Barry came in and sort of settled everything down. Had a great run after he came in, lifted the place. I thought they were good yesterday in patches, and like I said, once they got the equaliser, they're actually put in the ascendancy. Peyton had a couple of good chances to go ahead.
He thinks he needs 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, he does. I think he needs a little bit more creativity in midfield. I like Clarkson. He's not a bad player, but they missed chances on the counter-attack second half where the right ball at the right time and they were in. They got good pace up front. I thought they gave Celtic plenty down the sides, Miofsky and Duke. I was a bit concerned actually about the lack of pace in Celtic's back four yesterday. The goal was, an apparent one where Duke got round the back of Carter Vickers, and when he crossed it, the other centre half was nowhere to be seen. Miofsky's got the run on him and scored. And even in the second half, they're trying to play a high line, and Aberdeen were getting in behind them. So there's a bit of work there to do for Brendan as well, obviously. But yeah, Ruffy touched on it. We do need a good Aberdeen. I was disappointed last year with Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen not laying a glove really on the Old Firm last year, and I want to see more of that this season really.
Yeah, and with that in mind, it's possibly the first season we've all been talking about it, the fact that Hibs are shelling out £700,000 for a player. Aberdeen are starting to put a bit of money behind it. It's the first real season where you're starting to see people using money again in transfer fees.
I think it's post-COVID. I think maybe a lot of clubs struggled, with the finances, and maybe it's all settling down again. But speaking to people around Hibs and that, these Gordons have put the money where their mouth is, not only on the playing staff, Tom, but around the stadium and that as well. The hospitality side, the commercial side is very good, but ultimately you want to get the team right, and at least they are really having a go at it, and I think that'll come to fruition as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think a big carrot is finishing third now and getting that group stage European football. I think a few clubs are thinking to yourself, right, if we can finish third this season, Aberdeen got it this season, Hearts always got that money last season. If you can get £4 or £5 million, Aberdeen have got a pretty winnable game to get into the Europa League group stages, and Neil was obviously there last season. You're getting £7-8 million if you can get into that. So I think that's maybe Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen. I think, right, we just need to spend a little bit more money and try and get that third place.
It's always tough being an ex-Celtic manager and looking at it. How many do you think they need?
Celtic? I'd like to see them get another striker in. I'd worry if Kyogo was out for any period of time. I'd like to see a bit more physicality in midfield. A Wanyama type. Because to go into the Champions League, they're going to need that physicality. I mean, they've got good speed in the team, but for me, looking at them even last year, they lacked height at times, and they lacked that physicality when you come up against the top quality teams. And I do think that they will spend a bit of money between now and the end of August as well.
Do you think we're being fair on the fact that we've all been talking about the remit quite simply this time around for Brendan? A man who's won, trebles is now back at the club with possibly some assurances to get some higher quality players in for the Champions League, was where, or at least something in Europe.
Peter, it's a huge carrot for any coach that you are going to coach in the Champions League, and that's what Celtic can give a coach, and that's why I think Brendan has come back. I think the first priority is to win the title, and then the second priority is Europe. Can he get them out of the group, or can he finish third and get them beyond Christmas? Last year was the first time in the Champions League for a long time, and they played reasonably well in a lot of games, but they only came up with 2 points. So I think that's something that Brendan will look at and want to improve on. Yeah.
Is it fair to say, and I look at the teams and firmly believe that Rangers and Celtic, because of the changing face of European football, I think they are clubs that should have expectations of going far in the Europa League and the Conference League. You know, you only have to look at the evidence of Rangers. You look at, you know, the English clubs can dominate right across all three competitions, but I think there's a level below the Champions League where if they're in it, they should be thinking you could go far in it.
Yeah, well, Rangers proved that, you know, 2 years ago, and you know, Celtic, that'll whet the appetite of Celtic as well. I do think the glass ceiling for us all has been the last 16. I think eventually somebody will come and break that and get into the last 8. Whether it happens in the next 3 or 4 years, who knows? But I think it's always possible if you get the right draw and the right blend of a squad at the right time. But yeah, certainly the Europa League is one that Celtic and Rangers could go for in. I'm still not convinced on the Conference League on what it actually is.
Yeah,
you know, I've watched a lot of games and even the qualifying games. I'm still not sure what its reason to be is. But I do think that certainly they should be looking at the Europa League as you know, somewhere where they can go far in the competition now.
Yeah, I think if anybody gets Celtic into quarters of Champions League, they'll probably erect a statue outside.
Well, look, you know, Gordon's done it twice. I've done it myself. It's doable. You know what I mean? It's doable, and just maybe it. You know, it took me a couple of years to get that team together. Gordon did it. You know, after, you know, we had a really bad time against Bratislava, but then he built a team that got in twice. It's doable, and then, you know, last 16, can you go last 8? That has to be always a target for any ambitious club such as Celtic, and obviously they've got an ambitious manager in Brennan. But I think the main reason he's come back, Pete, is for the Champions League.
Yeah, okay. That's Celtic with a 3-1 win. What about Rangers? Well, of course, there was a European victory, but I think all the fans were looking for a bounce back from that defeat on the opening day to Kilmarnock, and they certainly got it, Tam.
Yeah, they did. I think this was always going to be a tricky game. Livingston are stuffy. David Martindale, you know, doing a great job at Livingston, goes there, tries to frustrate. 1-0. An hour into the game, he's probably rubbing his hands thinking, this is where I wanted to be, still in the game after an hour. I think the 5 substitutions is such a big advantage now for Celtic Rangers. I think you look at the subs that Rangers brought on, you know, and 2 of them scored, and plus the injury time that's going to be added on now. You know, if you're in a Livingston or a St Mirren and you're away and you're in the game, 9-10 minutes added on into a game, you know, and they're bringing 5 subs on to change half their team, makes it incredibly difficult for a smaller club to get results against Celtic Rangers. And you've seen that in the last 10-15 minutes. Livingston buckled, you know, they were tired, and Rangers ran over the top of them. Could have scored 5 or 6 in the last 15 minutes. So I think he'll be delighted. That a couple of new boys get goals as well. They were under a little bit of pressure after the Servette game at home. I think he wanted maybe Dessers to get a goal. I think he's the one that Rangers fans are not sure of at the minute. Lama scored a great goal, and Dill scored the goal of the game towards the end. So listen, great result. He's a little bit of pressure, but he'll be back on again tomorrow night.
Yeah, with that in mind, of course, they've got that lead, and can they finish the job off to get ready for what we think will be PSV Eindhoven? Certainly they're in a commanding position against Sturm Graz. We sent our man Adam Binney out to the Rangers training centre.
I'm at the Rangers training centre this morning as Rangers are getting in their final preparations before they jet off to Geneva later this afternoon. That's because, of course, they will face Servette in the second leg of their crucial third round UEFA Champions League qualifying match tomorrow. They go into that one with a 2-1 advantage from the first leg, thanks to goals from James Tavernier and Cyril Dessers. They followed up that 2-1 victory with a 4-0 hammering of Livingston at Ibrox on Saturday. Speaking after the match, manager Michael Beale was able to provide some early team news ahead of this European side.
Yeah, everybody's fine. We obviously John Lundstrom won't travel because he has a family thing, a personal thing, so he can't travel for the game. So there was a reason why I left Jacko out today with the free play in. I just wanted to make sure we had everybody available. And Connor was never going to play 3 games in a week because Connor's probably trained 3 times with a team in total and played 2 games. So, you know, that's a big pat on the back for Doc Waller, Jack Aid and John Irwin, the physios and sports science, the team, because after 3 months out, he come back and trained once, played Kilmarnock, trained twice and then played in midweek. So it was in our plan never to play in 3 games this week.
So Ryan Jack and Connor Goldson will come back into the squad, but John Lundstrom will drop out due to family matters as the Gers look to try and book their place in the Champions League playoff qualifying round. If they do so, and if they're able to get past Servette, waiting for them is likely to be old foes PSV, who they faced at this stage in the competition last year. Now, interestingly, PSV could field new signing in last year's PFA Scotland Young Player of the Year and fans' favourite here at Ibrox, Malik Tillman. But manager Michael Beale will be looking no further than tomorrow's match against Servette, as the Rangers fans are still hoping and looking for that complete performance from Beale's new look Rangers side. Will they provide that tomorrow? Only time will tell.
Come on! 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, Rangers with Servette on the horizon. They look as if slowly but surely, you know what it's like, you don't get time sometimes as a manager of Celtic or Rangers to bed in, but he's got to hope that all these new signings just start to click in the right manner domestically and in Europe.
Like, the more games they play, the more they'll find their feet. You know, whether some of them can enhance their reputations in Glasgow remains to be seen, because it's a difficult environment. The games are important. You know, I'm not convinced the qualification for the Champions League is as important for Rangers or Michael as the winning the championship, but he's got to get them up to speed and get them in a fluency which we've not seen as yet. Beating Livingston, you know, will have done them psychologically good and confidence good, but I think Livy might struggle this year because Dave's worked miracles, but every time he goes to the well, there's less money in the well for him, like, you know what I mean? So it's good that they've got the 3 points, they've got a convincing win, and that'll set them up for a difficult game, but I think we'll come through.
That's an interesting point, Ruffy. Winning the championship is the be-all and end-all to make sure that you're above Celtic. But I think maybe the directors might have a different view from what Neil's just mentioned there, when you consider the wealth that's on offer if you get to the group stages of the Champions League. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking they'll be saying, get Servette, get past them, PSV if it is going to be PSV. You know, it's the 30 million they want.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that right for the start, you know, when Rangers were trying to win the league, you know, they knew what was at the end of it, you know, and that's why so many people put a lot of money into Rangers. They threw everything at it, you know, and they got to the final, you know, which they'll know how much money they brought in there. They'll know winning the league brings automatic qualification, so that's a massive amount of money as well. But I mean, Celtic are still ahead of them in the money stakes, you know, that you can see by the players that Celtic are bringing in and the players that Rangers are bringing in. I'm not saying they're not top quality players because it didn't cost any money or they're on loan or whatever. I just feel that Celtic they're bringing in young players now, you know, where they weren't doing before, and obviously if they get big money they take it and they move on and they replace it.
Yeah, what do you make of, I mean, he's been backed, Michael Beale. I mean, the board have backed him. I mean, it's 9 signings and possibly more before this window shuts.
Yeah, he would have felt that needed to be done, Peter, right? So they didn't win any trophies last year. You know, they had a good run of games back half of the season, but ultimately they failed in the big games, the Celtic games, the semi-final and the League Cup final, and even in the league. So he has to win them. You know, it's all right, you know, saying, yeah, we're building a fresh new team. Ultimately, people won't give you credit for beating Livingston. They won't give you credit for beating Ross County. They won't give you credit for beating Hearts, right? That's a given in the minds of Rangers and Celtic fans' eyes. The cusp of it comes in the 2nd or 3rd of September. You know, that game at Ibrox, that's massive for Michael. Maybe not so much for Brendan, but certainly from a psychological point of view for Michael, it's one that he has to win. He can't afford to lose it, put it that way, because I'm not saying he'll get sacked, but it'll heap miles of pressure on him. It'll be a huge hangover after it as well.
Yeah.
And the Rangers fans will be going, oh, here we go again.
What's it like, that intensity, that pressure? What will he be feeling? Because if you hadn't lost against Kilmarnock and it was all neck and neck, then you've got that feeling among the Rangers fans that if they win the game, then, you know, this is them motoring towards, you know, another title. But what's it like when you've lost that game? We don't know what's going to happen in Europe, but suddenly you're going into a game where it's so critical, the pressure's on you. You know what it's like.
I do, yeah. I mean, it's because it's the first one, it's not the most important one of the season. That'll come later on down the line. But for him, it's really vital. With all this work that they've done, with all this rebuilding of the team and, you know, getting what he wanted in the door, now it's his team. The honeymoon period's over for him. You know, he's had that sort of 6 months to have a look at it. He's had a look at it. He's gone, right, we need this, and this. The club have backed them, and now they're going to go, right, Michael, deliver for us. And if he doesn't deliver, then it's going to pile heaps of pressure on him. It's great. I can't say it's not. It's a brilliant feeling, like, to be the man, if you want to call it that. But getting up in the morning of that game, your stomach's churning a little bit. You switch off the phone because you can't get distracted anymore, and all you think about are the players okay, is the pre-match all right, and then once the game starts, everything's fine after that. But the build-up is it's tense.
Yeah.
That way.
I know you revelled in it, but I mean, a victory's fine, because as we all know, the guys, you know, you can go out, you can enjoy it, you can maybe go to a specific place. What's it like, the pain of the defeat?
Oh, it's the feeling. There's no... The two ultimate opposites. You know, first of all, when you win, you feel relief. First of all, you're like, oh, wow. And then you get that feeling where you really enjoy it and you see everybody and what it means to them. And you know in the back of your mind, like, psychologically, that's massive for us. Going the other way, you know you have a mountain of work to do afterwards if you lose. You know, you don't go out of the house for a couple of days and people look at you as if you've got a horn growing out of the back of your neck or something like that. Or look at disgust at you, you know. Yeah. That's just the layer cake of Glasgow, you know what I mean? You have to accept it for what it is, and you know that's what you're going into. But yeah, there's no comparison really. And then you have to dig deep, and you have to find that resolve to come again and get people back on your side.
And on the flip side of obviously losing a game to either Celtic or Rangers, managers start to reflect on the chances that slipped past, and that's exactly the way David Martindale was feeling at the end of that game.
Because up until the second goal, I thought it was... the game could have swung. The Rangers looked like they might score another one, and we looked like we could maybe nick one back. So I'm frustrated, but proud of the players up to a certain level. But I was disappointed for the players as well in the changing room, because I could see how much they'd put into the game.
Do you get the feeling you could replicate it this season again?
No, I think he's going to struggle. I think you look at every interview David's making in the last month, and he's talking about budgets and he needs a player. I think it's very difficult for a guy at that standard of club to keep pulling the rabbit out of a hat every year. You're getting 1 year deals, 2 year at most. If they do well, they're away. If they don't do well, you're punting them. So I think it's very difficult for him. I think he's got one boy from Nigeria and he's got another one in from South Africa. So I think he's looking out with it now to try and get a gem to sell on. He's been trying to punt the big boy Nubly for about 6 months for money. I don't think he's going to get money for him. So their home form will probably keep them up on that pitch. Difficult place to go. If their home form's strong this season, they'll be fine. If they start struggling at home a wee bit, I feel the worst.
Yeah. Listen, the other great thing about getting you now is, you know, you were Hibs manager at one point. Tam writes a column now, and it's a kind of a yo-yo column that he writes. You know, 1 minute the Hibs manager's okay, and then, you know, sack him. That's the way it's that's the way it's going in his column. In here, what's he like, Ruffy? Yeah. Oh, he's got to go. He's under pressure.
I'm waiting to see this week. Are you going to wait until the European game before you do your column?
No, I'm going to do it before it.
Let's hope he wins.
He's a hokey-cokey, Lee Johnstone now. He's in and out 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 2-1, Motherwell.
Watched the game yesterday. I watched all the Hibs games and they were dreadful yesterday, Peter. They were really, really poor, lack of energy. I felt they would struggle after Thursday, you know, and I think it's difficult. The high of that game on Thursday were Hibs, you know, great atmosphere at home, get a great result, you know, the euphoria of all that result. A lot of people didn't fancy them, to be honest. 1-3-1, put themselves in the driving seat. They go to Motherwell away, totally different atmosphere. Motherwell sitting, waiting, hungry, doing well under Stuart Kettlewell. Very, very fit team. You know, got after Hibs, and I think Motherwell won the game comfortably. It took till 90 minutes for Hibs to have a shot on target. Not good enough for a club of Hibs stature. Hibs fans come away from that game questioning the manager, questioning the tactics. He can't give himself leeway at the minute. He's getting a great result. He's getting a poor result, he's getting a great result, he's getting a poor result. There's no consistency in the results, and that is leading him to be under pressure. And he's now got 2 huge games coming up. He's got to go to Switzerland, in my opinion, and get through. 2-goal lead. I think it's a bit of a catastrophe if you get put out now. And then he's got Wraith Rovers at home in the League Cup. So those 2 games for me are massive for him. If he wins both of them, I think the Hibs fans will forget about the poor league start. If he doesn't, if he loses both of them, I don't think he's going to be the manager, Peter. I think if he loses both those games, gets put out of Europe, loses to Wraith Rovers, it's a horrific start, and he's going to be under Series P.
Of course, managers sometimes look for an excuse if it doesn't go according to plan. Could it have been the hangover from that European win for Lee Johnson?
We've conceded 2 really poor goals of a weak disposition in terms of the physical battle for those 2 moments in the game, and then obviously we've got to then cover our mates. I feel like the output of Thursday has probably had a bit of an effect today in terms of the zip. You know, the difference in the numbers, in the sort of mental concentration. Like it's chalk and cheese, isn't it, from the 2 performances?
You never seem to get, Ruffy, you never seem to get a settled feeling when I get into a press conference with him that, you know, it's going to go according to plan in a game. You know, 1 minute you're looking, you're saying, okay, is there an excuse coming here? The next minute he comes out with the win in Europe, you're thinking, right, is he going to go on a run here? But losing to Motherwell, lost to St Mirren again on the opening day of the season, there are some Hibs fans that are just waiting.
Well, that's what Tam's saying, you know, that when you're a manager like that, and Neil will know more than us, you know, you've got to get the fans on board. You know, you've got to send out a team now who's going to give you 100%, but as Tam said, the consistency isn't there at all, and they've certainly got some quality players there. I think the fans would have been looking forward to the start of the season, but it's not there. Yeah, but it's important they win games. I don't get, I mean, Neil know better than us, you know, playing in Europe. If you're away from home and you're putting in a good shift, yeah, I can see the weekend you're going to be affected by it. But as Tam said there, they were on a high last week. They just had a fantastic European result. Why not take that confidence into the game? And some of the players don't seem to be able to react to it.
Yeah, to your credit, by the way, and you know, not just because you're here in the studio, because I lived there for such a long time, and I know a lot of my pals are Hibs fans, and I would say to them, if you are seriously going to take Hibs to another level, you need managers who can go in there and who are not tolerating draws. And when you were the Hibs manager and I would go into a press conference, I always felt as if I mean, apart from
Rovers away was
my favourite one was Jim Duffy was going to banjo you know, and I thought to myself, I might need to get in game honours here. But anyway, the press conferences were brilliant. But the thing about the Hibs fans that I think they wore them to you at the time was you need that attitude of, listen, if you want to change your mentality, you want to be a big club, you want to actually back it up, then stop celebrating 1-1 draws. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, well, that's the sort of... It's a big city club for me, Peter. When I went in there, they win the Championship, but they just won the Cup, so it was a good time to go in, and they're a very good team, very talented team. And I thought the hard bit was getting out of the Championship. We did that comfortably, and then I thought, yeah, we've got a right good squad of players here who can make inroads into the Premiership, and they did that. You know, I'm not going to talk about Lee's position. I think the players at the minute are inexperienced. They play European football and then come back and play at the weekend, and they've got to find that balance. Tom and Alan both touched on consistency, and that is the key word for Lee at the minute. He's not getting it either in results or performances, and that'll come, I think, wherever they go with the European thing. I think as the season progresses they'll get better, but I just think there's something missing from them at the minute. There's again, we'll go back about mentality, and I wanted to bring my mentality from what I'd achieved at Celtic to Hibs, and you can take that so far, but you know, you need people on board with you, to not just the players but behind the scenes as well, to drag it through. And there was times I would be going nuts at them and they couldn't get it, you know, drawing games, and I was really unhappy with them, and they were thinking this is a good result, but ultimately it cost us finishing maybe second or third. We finished fourth with 67 points, which would get you third no problem. You know, it was a really competitive league that year, but we played some great football, and I think it's a good club. But what is a reason to be at the minute? And we'll go back to this, is it to finish third, you know, behind Celtic and Rangers, get that cup final, you know, be the top team in Edinburgh, takes points off Celtic and Rangers? That every season should be their reason to be, and I don't know if that's the mentality of the team at the minute.
Yeah, okay. Great credit to Stuart Kettlewell at Motherwell, because when he came in last season, obviously he was able to change their fortunes and of course get them away from that relegation dogfight. This season again, the biggest problem he had early on was how do I replace the goals that are gone from Kevin Van Veen. Well, Mika Biereth, he's got him on loan from Arsenal and he was singing his praises for his goal at the weekend.
Yeah, he was excellent when he came on. We know he's got quality. Still a young lad, still probably in that sort of development phase, if you like, in his career. But coming from a club like Arsenal, we know he's a good player. Having a loan spell previously in the Eredivisie, playing over in Holland has been a factor for us thinking that he's probably ready to come in and play here. So delighted with the impact. You don't ever know that it's going to be like that first off, but certainly from the wee bits that we've seen in training, he starts to look as if he's a guy that would excel at this level and someone that could do well.
He just continues to impress, Ruffy.
Yeah, I thought the boy that he's talking about there was superb when he came on. You could see he's come from a big club. He's come from, playing with maybe players of a higher quality, and he went in and he just bullied them from start to finish. The upper body strength that he had, he was just throwing them about like rag dolls. But be interesting to see if he now thinks he's a first team player, if he gets more games, and he certainly looks as if he's got eye for goal. But I think he's done year on year, he's done very well in the players that he's come in.
Yeah, well, Motherwell will be thinking to themselves this season, because he's getting a full run at it with his own team, will they be looking and saying we may be one of those teams that should be thinking the same as what St Mirren thought last season?
Yeah, I think there's one spot up for grabs. I think the top 5 will be the top 5 in any particular order. And I think there's one spot, that's the 6th spot, and it'll be St Mirren, it could be Motherwell, making a play for that Kilmarnock. I started well under Derek, so I think that they'll be looking to try and get in the top 6 again. He's done a great job there. Stuart Kettlewell really has. He's come in. I'm great pals with Stevie Hamill and Brian Kerr. I really felt for them because the same squad of players who went straight in and made an impact. He got a lift. They gave the players a lift, and they were fantastic at the back end of last season. I know they're in the bottom 6, but they were in great form. They started this season 4 points out of 6, and I think if you're a Motherwell fan, you're pretty buoyant the way the team's playing at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, Stephen Hamill was a club legend, and he had that kind of he was trying every week, and I was going to press conferences looking at him after games, and he had that 1,000-yard stare, that stare as if I don't know, I've tried this, I've tried that. Sometimes is there still that skill you believe in the man management of just?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's still a huge part of the spectrum of being a manager. Everyone talks about coaching and that, but you gotta find the foibles of players. What their strengths and weaknesses are in their makeup. What makes them tick, what keeps them happy, what they're not so good at. Do you need to put an arm around one of them? Do you need to give the other one a razz up? So, it sounds a bit old-fashioned, but it's still very, very important, Peter. I think with Stephen was concerned, he's an excellent youth coach. I think he's back working at Celtic, and I think that's his forte. Maybe the job came too soon for him, but I think he'll come again. He's got a really good reputation in the game. As for Stuart, Tom's right, he's lost 2 games since he's come in. I'm like you, I was worried about them losing the Van Veen, because that was a hell of an amount of goals he scored last year. But they seem to have replaced them really well, and they're going on that consistent run again. So you're right, they could make top 6, and Tom's right. I've got 5 in place, and then 3 or 4 teams fighting for 6th place.
If you do eventually get back into football, Ruffy and Tam and I really like the idea of you maybe becoming just one of 3 people who call the shots, like a triple manager situation. It's Hearts nil, Kilmarnock nil at the weekend, and we're waiting to see who comes out to claim the credit for a win every now and then. If it's a win, out comes Frankie McAvoy. It's a difficult draw. Nazy's out there. We're wondering who's next.
Lights on that.
Could you hack that?
No, but I understand. I mean, when I first got the Celtic job, I was 38, and the club wanted to bring in Stuart Baxter as a sort of mentor, but he was the coach of Finland at the time, and eventually the Finnish FA said no, it's not going to happen. So I understand that there is a room for it, but they just don't look altogether comfortable together at the minute, but they've made a decent start to the season.
Yeah. Were you keen on an older person coming in? Because it's hard to believe.
You know what, Peter, at the time, no, but when I look back on it now, it was probably the right thing to do, or the right, sort of sentiment for it. So, Frankie's very experienced, and he worked under Alec Neil for a long, long time, so, and he knows Joe Savage very well, but ultimately you like to think Stephen's going to have the final say on things.
Yeah. Now we want to see Ruffy, I think it's fair to say we want to see Hearts, finish the job. They're only 2-1 behind against a Rosenborg side that's totally different from the one Neil used to play against. They're not the same squad strength and European pedigree.
Yeah, well, you're thinking the players that were there last year will be still experiencing the disappointment of just missing out last year. So you would like to think they'll take it into this tournament. They'll know what's there. They'll know what's at the end of it. And we keep talking about we want all our Scottish clubs going September, October, November as long as possible. So your hope, I think the support obviously will get right behind them. That'll be a benefit. I know they're not playing particularly well just now, but you think on a European night the whole place will get a lift and they can get through.
Yeah, confident about it?
Not confident. I think, Neil, as you said, Neil played against Rosenborg when they won the Champions League nearly every year. I don't think
they were fantastic.
Every year they used to qualify. I still think they've got players in there that can hurt Hearts, but for me it's all about Hearts.
I've got a question for you. You watch a lot more Scottish football. I know I've been away for a while, but say Hearts and Hibs were to qualify, would that hamper what they're doing domestically? Do you understand what I'm saying, Tom?
Yeah, I think so.
Have they got the squad capable for European football?
Liam McCulloch was in last week and he said it was very difficult last season for them in the conference.
Yeah. Playing
Thursday, playing Sunday. They were away to Turkey, they were away to Fiorentina, they got landed in a hard group. And that was probably one of the reasons that Robbie ended up losing his job, because they fell off a cliff in terms of the league. So great for the money men, as you say, Champions League football, European group football, great financially, but for managers, your squad's it's not deep enough, and Hibs are even struggling just now, not even in the group stage.
But it goes back to what you were talking about, which is the mindset of a board. Now, if you're in a situation, for example, that you suddenly get, and I thought Hearts had a winnable tie last year against Zurich. I thought they could have taken them over the two legs and failed miserably, and then dropped into the conference, which maybe brings 7 or 8 million. But if you go into the Europa League in the group stages, suddenly that is a huge transformational budget to you.
Listen, we did a bit of ammonia, and we beat. Miraculously, we did really well against Ghent, beat them 2-0 home and away. It was amazing. But then we got a Champions League group, basically Man United, Sociedad and Tiraspol. But the money coming in, you guaranteed sell-out houses at home, and then obviously prize money for qualifying. But it had an effect on the players, because they were playing Thursday night and then coming back playing domestically on Sunday, and they weren't used to the rigours of the European football. Basically you're playing against Man United, it's like a Champions League game, you know what I mean, and then flying back and then trying to get themselves ready for a game on a Sunday. Our performances weren't bad, Pete. We out of the 7 games we won 4, lost 3, and only lost them by a goal. But that was enough for the board to go, right, this isn't working, we need new coaching. So that might seem a bit harsh, but this is my point with these teams, Aberdeen, Hibs and Hearts. Are they capable of qualifying and then maintaining that consistency domestically?
But just in relation to that then, there's something that we can all learn here. When you get Omonia Nicosia, which is a team that's not fancied to get, to that level after winning the cup, when you qualify for that group stage, do you then go to the board and say, look, before this deadline, come on, we've got this money, we know it's guaranteed, give us some extra money to get extra players. I'm looking at Hearts and Hibs and Aberdeen, and I'm saying to myself, if any of those clubs get group stage football, especially Europa League, you're saying, wait a minute.
It's interesting, and listen, we're not party to the conversations between boardrooms and the staff and that. Have they got the ambition to do that, or do they think, no, look, we'll take the money and use it for, the infrastructure of the club and just have fun with the European thing? But that can also be like a noose around your neck, really, for the domestic game, which we're seeing at the minute. Now, if they qualify, I do believe that the managers and coaches deserve a bit more, but whether they can supply it or not's another thing, Pete.
Did you chat the door and ask for more money?
Yeah, so they didn't do it. or they brought some players in that I didn't really want, you know what I mean? So,
well, listen, it was a 0-0, it wasn't a bad 0-0. There were chances in that game between Hearts and Kilmarnock.
It was. I thought Kilmarnock were unlucky to win the game. I think if I seen Derek speaking about it after the game, I thought they had the better chances in the game. I'm really impressed with Kilmarnock. 2 clean sheets in a row, and he's got the big boy Finlay back. He's signed the boy Dees from Inverness, I like as well. He's got Kyle McGuinness, who was at Hibs, just injured constantly, but when he played I liked him, but he was just constantly injured. If he keeps him fit, middle of the pitch, they've got Vassell up front. The boy Armstrong's excellent winger. So I like what Derek McInnes is doing there, and obviously we're going to speak about they've got Celtic coming up the camp. That'd be a tough game for Celtic to go down there with Kilmarnock playing that way at the minute. But I thought Hearts were pretty poor, and I thought Kilmarnock can find themselves unlucky not to win the game.
Yeah, and on the basis of that, Derek McInnes brimming with confidence, looking forward to that game against Celtic.
I think obviously Celtic, a fantastic cup record over the while. You know, I was disappointed and I made my opinion heard when we won our group when we draw Celtic, and it wasn't the tie we wanted, but right now it feels like a good tie for us, and I think that we are. Rugby Park will be jam-packed next week. It'll be a brilliant atmosphere, and I think the players should go into the game with a lot of confidence. 2 clean sheets against Rangers and Hearts, 2 strong performances individually and as a team.
Is Derek the type of man in his team that should be looking at maybe that 6th spot that you and Tam have been talking about?
Oh, I think he will be. You know, he won't want to go through what they went through last year. I mean, that was a horrendous run of away games and no picking up any points. And you'll be hoping that the players don't want to go through that again. So no, it's a positive start, and he's quite rightly talking it up. You know, but obviously, I don't think for a minute that Celtic are going to go there and they're going to get another shot out for a minute. If they do, they're obviously going to win the game.
Yeah, okay. St Mirren 2, Dundee 1. I'll just show you St Mirren's run of games. First 6 games, 5 wins, finished 6th last season. Stephen Robinson.
No, the place is buoyant. You know, my boy's gone in there and signed a contract, and the club have been great with him. But I was at the game at Easter Road last week where I thought they played ever so well, particularly first half. And Hibs had a bit of a go back at them, but the game should have been out of sight after 45 minutes. They're well organised. He's got a problem, Stephen, at the minute with, you know, the game management of some of the players in terms of they were 2-0 up again at the weekend, and Dundee made a real good fist of it towards the end. But the results have been great. O'Hara's a big miss for him, I think, because he's been the most consistent player. But the scoring goals, he's found a system that suits the players at the minute. And yeah, I mean, a brilliant season last year. The expectation is, can they do that again? It's always difficult, Peter, but they're in a really good place at the minute, and they've started the season ever so well.
It's good that you mentioned that there. That was one of the things that Stephen Robinson was talking about at the end of that victory, how to see a game out.
You know, the lessons we're learning from the last 2 games is when we do go 2-0 up, just to land on the ball a little bit more composure and managing the game, and it became a little bit panicky and frantic, and still saying that we still created chances. One cleared off the line that I was told could have been over the line, so I don't know, I've not seen it, but we had enough chances then to go and finish it off, and when we needed to defend, we defended really well, defended our box well. I thought Zach Hemmings was outstanding today, as he has been since he came into the club.
His stock just keeps rising, Ruffy.
Yeah, it does, and we keep having negotiation, talking about it. You know, is he the kind of guy who's going to go when the next big job comes up? Is he going to get a chance at getting it? I think the standards that he's setting last year and this year, that he's certainly going to be talked about if a big job comes up.
Yeah, Tony Docherty's now his own man. I know you want Dundee to do well because it's one of your 32 former clubs, but have you seen signs that it can all be okay for surviving in this league?
Yeah, I think they've been competitive in both games, Peter. I think at home at Motherwell, Motherwell go 1-0 up, they come back strongly, should have won the game last week, had chances to win it, hit the post. Listen, it's a big save for the goalkeeper, it's a poor penalty at 1-0. You know, that's a big moment in the game. You know, it's a really poor penalty and the keeper saves it. 1-0, it goes to 1 each, it's a different game. St Mirren got the park and make it 2-0. Come back strongly. I think they'll be okay. I speak to Stuart Taylor, as you know, as number 2 up there. They're still looking to get 3 or 4 in. They're still looking for players, looking for it to give them a hand. So, listen, they've got a tough run of games coming up, but they need to start picking up points, particularly at home. But I certainly don't think they're going to be cut adrift.
Up at Dingwall, you wouldn't be excuse me, aware of this, Neil, but Ruffy's got a fan up there called Jan, the Staggy. We're not quite sure of Jan's age at the moment. We're trying to establish, we've been asking we've been asking Jan for pictures. She sent him a birthday card, right? She sent him a birthday card. So we've been asking, you know, Jan, obviously we'd like a good party at Johnny Fox's and then head up to Dingwall for a game. But Ross County, every time Ruffy tips Ross County for the drop, they avoid it. So Jan's like, whatever you do, Ruffy, do not tip Ross County to stay up. But I think Malky this year, I don't know, I get a vibe from him. It was hear him, scare him last season. I don't think it is this season. I don't think it will be.
I fancied them to win at home. You know, I saw them obviously the opening game, and they showed plenty of character. Listen, bottom line, Peter, they were a penalty kick away from going down last year. So I think, Malky will have that in mind. I think the home form will be pivotal for them again this year, and they've got decent strikers in the building now. So they've got goals in them. I fancy them to beat St Johnstone, who I think could be in trouble this year unless Stephen gets a bit more backing. But I think Ross County will be absolutely fine this year. I don't think they'll be anywhere near the anxieties of last year.
Yeah, 2 good goals as well, Ruffy.
Yeah, wee boy Kyle Turner, who was very good for Partick Thistle last year. When Ian McCall was there, he was trying to get him into a more advanced role, which he's took on board. I think he's more than happy going and supporting the strikers, and he's always good for a goal, and he got one at the weekend. So no, I think it's a good signing.
He was outstanding in the playoffs with Thistle last year.
Good player.
He was terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific.
I'm looking at what Neil mentioned there about St Johnstone. Let's have a listen to what Stephen MacLean had to say after that defeat.
But they'll need to look over their shoulders soon, because we talk about getting players in and players back from injury, but people are getting their opportunities and people are playing there, so it's a hunger and a desire to go and do your job, and it is your job, and you've got to go and do the fundamentals. And you know what, it might take having to play young boys, because I'm not having that, so I'd rather play a 16-year-old than have what I've seen there today.
When a manager says that in a press conference, Tam, usually in my fraternity, everybody just has a wee look to the left and the right, and they know that's a back page headline. 2 games in, and he's already, just basically throwing down the gauntlet to them.
Yeah, listen, I think they finished the season poorly last year. I think they were lucky just to stay. I think a couple of games towards the end of last season, they played 10 men. And I think that kind of masked the results towards the end of the season. I don't think they've particularly strengthened this season, and he really is having a go at the experienced boys there. And they've got a lot of experienced players. Big boy Gordon, the captain, Ryan McGowan. They've got some experienced players. Considine, and I don't think he's happy with them. But I think it's a bit early to be shouting about young boys 2 games into the season. They had a poor League Cup campaign, losing 4-0 to Stirling at home was a shocker. And I think he's feeling the heat now. As Neil said, he needs a hand. He needs some quality players in there. And if St Johnstone don't bring in 3 or 4 before the window closes, I think they'll be definitely in the bottom 2.
He needs Celtic like a hole in the head coming up as well, Ruffy. And it must be a lonely, lonely place. I mean, Neil said he was manager of Celtic at 38, and Stephen MacLean looking there, and if he doesn't get the help, suddenly you start to feel as if the walls are closing in on you.
Well, you can tell the difference when he got the job to what he's doing now. He was a very nice person. Was
he not nice now?
This is great. Now you can see the tone. It's really hit in. The pressures, as Neil said, that come along with a manager. He's now having to make decisions, and people will be asking questions. So I think you do get a wee bit hardened that way, but the only people can help him is the board.
That's a young, emotional manager there. Straight after the game, Pete, he's young, inexperienced, and I wouldn't say he's throwing the players under the bus, but he's obviously not happy with the performance, and he knows the club inside out, Stephen, and he knows the players as well. But you learn from things I was like that myself. It's heart in his sleeve. So it shows how much the performance has disappointed him, and he'll be looking for a reaction. Whether he gets that or not, I don't know.
Do you think it's difficult, Neil, for him being a player and being part of that, to going straight into being a manager? And he knows all the players, he's played below them.
Yeah, it becomes totally different, Tom.
Yeah, you can't be everyone's friend at that
exactly. Point. There has to be a buffer. Well, that's where your good assistant comes in, but there's definitely, you have to distance yourself, and you can't be their pal anymore. Bottom line is, it's your neck on the block, you know what I mean? And if these guys aren't performing for you, something's going to give, and normally it's the coach. But look, we're only 2 games into the season, but the warning signs are there, Peter.
You said you were only 38. Did it start to worry you when you were obviously becoming a manager, and you obviously had to, batten down the hatches and not have the friends that the only 2 pals you'd left were me and Ruffy? Was it a worry? And Big Marty?
It definitely is a lonely, at times it's a lonely job, and you go through all different thought processes and all different sort of emotional roller coasters, you know what I mean? But it's so worth it. The highs far outweigh the lows, especially at a club like Celtic, but there's no grey area. And there are times when you just want to get in the car and drive and just be on your own, and that's again, I always found that a bit beneficial. Or take the dog for a walk without trying to kick her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, we all have different ways of dealing with the anxieties and the pressures that come your way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's a little bit over the top, Pete. You know, there has to be, you know what's real, and you know that there's the social media world and the media world out there, but you got to, you know, block that out and really try and block it out and not let it seep into your thought processes or what you're doing with the team. It can be difficult in this day and age, but if you're conscientious with your work, you can live with it.
And can I just mention, just because obviously it's the 21st century and there's some people who obviously hang on every word, no dogs were harmed after an Old Firm defeat by Neil Lennon.
or cat.
Yeah, or cat. Just thought
it's a colloquialism.
Exactly.
You know me,
Yeah.
That's the thing if it's
That's exactly what I was thinking. I could see a curtain through my headline coming towards the show there. I'm going to save him. Anyway, let's have a look at the table and see how things look. It's early days. St Johnstone at the bottom, Hibs again with that poor start as Tam mentioned, up the top end. St Mirren were at the top for, albeit maybe 15 or 16 hours before eventually Celtic restored the normality for them at the top. But Rangers got a crucial confidence boosting win. If I was going to pin you down on what we've been talking about, is it going to be tighter between Celtic and Rangers in your mind?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Obviously there's a transition for Celtic as well from Ange to Brendan, but I think Rangers have to improve. You know, it's a necessity for them. And you know, you on the outside looking in, you want a title race, you know, you want it to be exciting and that, but with my Celtic hat on, I still think Celtic will come up trumps. You know, they've got not only the quality, but they've got the mentality to do it as well. But I think it'll be closer this year for sure. But if he loses the first game, Michael, then you know the next 6-7 weeks are going to be a long run for him.
Yep, okay. Let me tell you that we are trying to give you not only quality but variety to PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Last season the figures were absolutely fantastic, with over 30 million views for our content, and we are going to continue to bring you lots of different programming. Not only the football show, we'll be covering European football. We've got the Journal is coming online talking football this week for you. We'll also have lots of one-to-one exclusives and a new programme coming up as well in the women's game, and I'll let Kerry Pollock, the host of the show, tell you all about it.
We have a brand new women's football show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel, hosted by myself, Kerry Pollock, and Alison McConnell.
Join us for our very first show on August the 15th as we speak to special guest Laura Montgomery, Glasgow City's Chief Exec.
Come and join the football family on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel.
Yeah, and there's even more special programming on the way. We'll have documentaries as well. Last season's documentary with David Martindale, you know, basically flying the wall. He allowed us access all areas from about 7:30 in the morning, which is absolutely fantastic, Ruffy, that he just gave us. I mean, we met him basically coming out of his house. If we do one with Lenny, we can see him coming back in at 7:30 in the morning.
Say, yeah. a bit early for me, that one.
But it really was great because it was well received. It's unusual, you know, managers giving you that access all areas.
Brilliant. And it gives an insight not only for Livingston fans but for, you know, other fans to see how a club like that is run. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it was a really good watch, and there'll be lots more of that on the way. As far as the Predictor's concerned, we're going to get Neil involved in it. It doesn't really matter when you join. So many of our viewers says, look, we want to go head to head with you guys on a monthly basis, and then at the end, the winner of our Predictor of the 6 Scottish Premiership fixtures every week will have their mate, and they'll come along with us to the PFA Scotland Player of the Year Awards. Now, you were there at our table. What a night. I don't think you put your hand in your pocket.
That's a bit harsh. that was a bit harsh. Yeah, it was great. It was actually, it wasn't like the old days, Ruffy. It was quite civilised. You know, whereas, you know, back in the day, Tom, with the PFA in England and Scotland, there used to be a bun fight, like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was a really good night, apart from the MC, I can't remember who that was.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't having a go at you for not buying a drink. I was just saying I picked up the tab as the boy.
It's
as the boy.
time, you know what I mean? That's 25 years of knowing you.
Tight like a dead teeth.
Anyway, it's well worth it as a prize. It's a good night.
It's a great night.
Yep, good night out at the table with you and your pal. And why not get involved on the monthly one? Because at the end of this month, we will give away some special prizes as well to those who finish in the top. Let's have a look at the table to see how the pundits are doing against some of the punters. Well, Proud Scott won there. I think it's, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to pronounce this. Is it Fico 77, Steph 29, that one there, no chance of winning, is at 4, HBS 2304, which is a Hibby undoubtedly, and then MCW14A KFC. That's the top 6 there.
Who's bottom there, Pete?
I'm just looking at the moment. Ruffy's on 6, our reporter Adam's on 9, Alison's on 10, and Kerry is on 10.5 points, and then I'm just behind you, Tam. 14.5 plays 15.5.
So we're still well down the pecking order, but I just wanted to finish and talk about that with all us in here. I'm not caring about winning it.
I missed the first week.
All right, okay.
You've actually got to log it in your phone. He doesn't know how to do it. He's going to be last.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult to do it in a Nokia 3210, to be honest with you, but nevertheless, we're trying to keep Ruffy up to date with the technology. What about the English Premier League? I mean, this is the great thing about it, I think, and I mentioned it at the PFA, and we do continually mention it on here. We as a nation have got a football mad society, and we should be promoting the game more and more, as we do here, and as you know the other TV and radio stations do. But I think we should be even more positive, polish it, gloss it up about Scottish football, because when you look at the money that's being spent in the English Premier League, most of Europe is worried about how they can compete with them.
No, I agree. I mean, it's so difficult for Scotland because the Premier League's right on our doorstep, like, you know what I mean? But for what the population is and what the fraternity of football is, it's fantastic. Scottish football's been so good for me, Pete, and it's still very, very exciting. It still makes me want to get up and go to games, and not just Celtic Rangers, but I enjoyed going to Easter Road, Tynecastle. The product itself is fantastic, and yeah, we should be proud of it, and we should just keep promoting it because others won't.
Yeah, English Premier League, Ruffy. Here's the results from the weekend. Of course, Burnley were hoping to get off to a good start, but it was always going to be tough against Man City. A good win there. Arsenal 2-1 win over Nottingham Forest. Some of the other most notable ones, Brighton and Hove Albion, just keep on going with their impressive form in the top flight. What about Newcastle? 5-1 over Aston Villa. And as we look at that Ange Postecoglou Tottenham game against Brentford, it finished 2-2. I think Ange Postecoglou's attitude now is like the Harry Kane era is over. Put it to the back of your minds, move on.
Yeah, he's such a big player, Neil touched on it, the amount of goals that he scores, you would think that certain players would go, they'd be panicking a wee bit when they've not got that kind of goal scorer, but you've got to move on, and I'm sure with the money that they're going to get, they'll have to go big. Yeah,
there's a lot of big money being spent, but of course, Kane surprised more than a few because quite simply, he's high-fiving the fans at Bayern Munich, he's there. Some people are surprised he didn't stay here for the Premier League goals record in the English Premier League, but he wants to win trophies.
Yeah, I mean, Bayern Munich, one, you've got a great chance of winning the Bundesliga, but Champions League, I think that's a big carrot for Harry as well. I think it'll be a relief for Ange as well. They have all that saga, will he, won't he, because that can be quite draining when you're actually just in the door and you're trying to build a team, so hopefully he'll be given funds to, you're never going to replace Harry Kane, but he will want to bring his own style of player in. I thought they played quite well yesterday, difficult venue, Brentford, and got a good result, so it's a good start for him.
He's a former Celtic manager who's going down there, and sometimes the English, never mind the press, but sometimes English football in the game and out with the game look with disdain at Scottish football. How do you think Ange is going to do down there? Because this is a club who've sacked 3 top drawer managers.
Yeah, I don't know what the expectation will be from Tottenham. He would do brilliantly if they get the top 6, Pete. Just with all the competition that's around him, you've got City, Newcastle, Manchester, Liverpool. I think Villa will be strong this year, even though Newcastle did a great job on them the other day. Chelsea are going to improve, Tom, after the season they've had. So if he makes top 6, I think that'll be a magnificent achievement. However, just stabilising things, getting his own brand of football in, maybe going well in a cup competition, something like that. I think it'll be fine. You know, when Brendan came down, you know, Martin came down, got big jobs, Villa, you know, top 6 every season, got them to a couple of cup finals. Brendan wins a couple, Leicester. So it's always in the background, this sort of disdain for the Scottish game. I don't know how real or genuine it really is anymore. And if you look at the Scotland team now, Pete, so many of them have played in Scotland, are now playing in the Premier League and playing brilliantly, not only for the clubs but for the national team as well.
Yeah, just a little footnote on that. Yep, footnote. Let's go with a footnote first. What about Kieran Tierney? Because I think there's a lot of people up here speculating he was going to come back to Celtic on loan. Arsenal want to sell him, so that shuts the door.
Yeah, I mean, even if he'd have come on loan, you're talking like if, you know, Arsenal would demand a 10 million loan fee. You know, so that's just not going to happen. He needs to go. You know, he's such a good player, and he's, for me, you know, I'm amazed he's not in the team, or wasn't, especially in the run-in last year when they needed a better defender than Zinchenko. He should have been playing, but then that's Michael's decision. He's a quality player. When he's fit and firing, he's one of the best in Britain. So, yeah, at this stage of his career, I think he needs to go and play somewhere else.
Okay, listen, we've crammed it all in. Hopefully you've enjoyed it on the programme. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, and of course, if you follow us across Facebook and download the app as well, you'll get all the breaking football news at your fingertips and on the website as well. We've got so much to offer you, and if you love your football, then why not join the football family on PLZ Soccer, especially our YouTube. Ruffy, are you happy with the rolling contract we're offering him? What do you think about the debut?
Well, he'll know how that works more than us.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Happy with the two pundits?
Oh, yeah, delighted. Just it was a nice debut to make, you know. No panic, and you were well behaved, so yeah. I appreciate that for each. I'm still trying to work out.
This is worse than the one you had on Friday. Not as if you're just at Royal Infirmary.
I know,
an operation.
With all due respect, I'm willing to take the pelters from you guys on the basis that Ruffy has worn a pair of yellow shorts that clearly were for his brother, and they're a 32, and certainly the ones he's wearing don't fit him. On that note, thanks to Ruffy as he crosses his legs, thanks to Tam, and also thanks to Neil Lennon. He'll be back with us next Monday. Don't forget, Lee McCulloch, our other signing on the Friday football show, but this week coming, we've got the women's football show. We've got lots of exclusive one-to-ones to look forward to, and we'll be covering European football as well. Hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel and don't miss any of the action. Thanks to Ruffy, to Tam and Neil, and from myself, Peter Martin. Thanks for watching.